Hi, my name is Kaylin.
And I'm Adam.
Welcome to What's Your Problem, where we discuss current issues in distance learning and education. Jason's here to tell us more about today's problem.
Due dates get a pretty bad rap. Taxes, bills, homework, babies. But you know what never has a due date? Failure. That's right. Due dates give us progress. Perhaps not the progress Robert Downey Jr. and Zach Galifianakis were hoping for when they made the comparable movie Due Date, but progress nonetheless. Whether for good or bad, the point is due dates matter. And there are some things you can do to make sure the due dates you set in your courses are most beneficial to you and your students. Here's Adam and Kaylin with more on that.
You've likely heard the adage, early is on time is late, and late is inexcusable. You're also likely familiar with the tendency of some students to wait until the very last minute to turn in an assignment, regardless of how many times you've encouraged them to get it done early or reminded them of the potential consequences of missing the deadline. And while you shouldn't feel obligated to make too many concessions for the due date challenged, you can take a thoughtful approach to assigning deadlines that will make life a little easier for you and your students. I'm going to take a guess that almost all of the assessments in your current online course are either due on Wednesday or Sunday at 11:59 p.m., which makes sense. After all, these due dates roughly correspond to the middle and end of the week, and therefore provide just about as much time as humanly possible for students to complete and submit their work. However, we know that a lot of our online students juggle work, family, and other commitments that require them to complete most of their coursework in the evening or on weekends, when most of our support resources are unavailable to them. For example, if a student has trouble logging into Blackboard after dinner on a Wednesday, they could contact Blackboard support after hours, but they'll lose an entire evening of productivity before their issue can be resolved. What about the student who plans to dedicate all day Saturday to finishing the project that's due Sunday and is confused about the last part of the directions? Should they call you? Will you answer? Knowing that these types of issues arise and that they often lead to rounds of emails and phone calls to resolve after the fact, you could consider adjusting those traditional Wednesday-Sunday due dates to deadlines that fall during traditional support hours. Moving a Wednesday by midnight due date up to Wednesday at 3 p.m. or a Sunday by midnight due date back to Monday at noon provides a little extra cushion of support for students who may need it. Clearly communicating your personal availability and adjusting due dates accordingly can also make a big difference. It may not cure procrastination and missed deadlines among your students, but it can help them more effectively plan their schedules while allowing for the inevitable technical crash or life happened moment.
Let's take a minute to picture an all too familiar situation. It's 8:37 a.m. on a Monday morning. You log into Blackboard to grade your students' midterm essays. You also open your email and start to scroll through your accumulated messages. Most of what you're seeing is junk or miscellaneous, so you start to relax and think all your students turned their assignments in on time. Until you find the one email sent by a student at 2:10 this morning explaining they weren't able to get their essay completed because of reasons A, B, or C. Now you have to make a decision. Do you let this student have extra time to turn in their essay? Do you automatically give them a 0 on their midterm for missing the due date? How do you make these decisions unbiasedly for multiple students and possibly numerous times a semester? One option is to develop a late assignment policy. This policy will allow yourself and your students to be completely clear on the due dates for your course. Will students lose points if they turn in their work past the deadline? Is there a late pass students could use once or twice in the semester to turn in an assignment past the due date? Now, even though the policy would lay out the details on submitting assignments or completing quizzes or exams after the listed due date, these are all things you should make students aware of whether you institute a formal policy in your course or not. It would definitely cut down on the number of questions or complaints you receive from students who didn't know the rules of late assignments or those students who have a legitimate reason for submitting an assessment late. Whichever you think is best for your course should be clearly stated within the syllabus and/or the orientation for your course.
Like Kaylin just alluded to, you should always ask yourself, what happens if my students don't submit their work by the due date? However, while it may seem counterintuitive, you should also be asking yourself, what might happen if they turn it in early? While it probably isn't as pervasive as an issue as missed deadlines, early submissions can also cause problems for faculty and students. Take, for example, the student who accidentally submits an assignment. This is almost always due to user error. Sometimes a student will hit the wrong button when reviewing the directions or attach the wrong document by mistake, but these mistakes always require extra work on your part to clear the attempt or figure out some other way to allow that student to submit his or her work ahead of the deadline. Or consider the student who actually took the time to complete an assignment early, but then, having found some extra time later in the week, decides to revisit and improve upon their original work. In this scenario, the student may reach out to you to negotiate a resubmission or sadly just resign themselves to a lesser grade to avoid having to bother you at all. Neither of these are ideal situations. Luckily, both of them can be avoided with one simple click, by allowing multiple or even unlimited attempts on your assignments. This can be a hard transition for some faculty to make, but it's at least worth your consideration. Unlimited attempts allow for the OOPS submissions and the draft assignments that students may want to revisit, but eliminates the faculty and support workload that comes along with them. However, if you do decide to allow multiple attempts, make sure to clearly communicate one thing to your students, that you will only grade their most recent submission, provided it met the deadline. This will avoid requests from students like, well, you can grade my first draft and see if it was better, or I know I failed this, but I get multiple attempts, right? If you're going to make this change, it's important that students understand the purpose behind it and that ultimately they are still held accountable.
So for a quick recap, due dates are not arbitrary. Simply ensuring due dates are a day and time when adequate technical support is available will cut down on time wasted both for students and instructors. Additionally, making sure students are aware of your late assignment policy is critical since they may have multiple instructors with differing policies. And finally, when applicable, consider offering multiple attempts on assignments. This way, students who make general human errors with their submissions can try again without needlessly contacting you to have an attempt removed.
What's Your Problem wants to hear from you. If you have an idea you'd like us to discuss in a future episode, or if you just want to drop us a line, send us an email or follow us on Twitter.
Thanks for watching. See you next time.
What's your problem? What's your problem? I don't get what your problem is.
Welcome to Schoolcraft. Welcome to college.